Today on Commander Replay, we're back with some more Will and Rowan Kenrith extra turns. Will they be able to take all the extra turns this time? Find out next on Commander Replay. I'd like to thank my awesome Patreon supporters. We have a new Patreon supporter, and that's Nathan Roth. Nathan, you are awesome. If you want to help support the channel or vote on which decks I play next, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below. And be sure to check out my GoFundMe for GP Vegas, where I offer rewards like deck reviews or having your deck made into a video. Links to the GoFundMe and the video describing the details will be in the description below. Welcome back, everyone. Playing some more Rowan Kenrith and Will Kenrith. Today's deck comes from GoFundMe donator Ethan, and this is a Will and Kenrith turns deck. I've already played one game with this deck. I don't know if that game will make it to air or not. We will see. But we're taking another crack with it, and that brings it to our turn one. Turn one, Elvish Mystic coming down for the Goreclaw, and that'll bring it to our turn one. Let's just go for this tap land right here. Seems like a good idea. We'll gain a life, and we will pass the turn. Last game we went last in the turn order. This one we're going third in the turn order. That's an increase of 1. Ponder for the Najeela opponent. Nature's Lower coming down for the Goreclaw opponent. They get themselves a forest. Yep, they are ramping like crazy, so if they've got big stuff in their deck, which I assume they do, they should be getting into it pretty quickly. Brings it back to our turn. We draw a Fairy Temporal Archmage, and let's see, right here we will, I think we're just going to get the Star Compass in. So let's play, I guess, an island, drop in the compass, and we will pass like that. Taking a look at Will Kenrith and Rowan Kenrith. Will Kenrith is 4 blue for a 4 loyalty planeswalker. The +2, until your next turn, up to 2 target creatures each have base power and toughness 0/3 and lose all abilities. That is a very good defensive ability. That lose all abilities part can really shut down a lot of stuff. As we see a Bloom Tender coming into play for our opponent. The -2 is target player draws 2 cards. Until your next turn, instant sorcery and planeswalker spells that player casts cost 2 less. Also very good. And then finally, the -8, target player gets an emblem with whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it, choose new targets for the copy, and then it partners with Rowan Kenrith. And Rowan Kenrith is 4 red for a 4 loyalty planeswalker. +2, during target player's next turn, each creature that player controls attacks if able. -2. Rowan Kenrith deals 3 damage to each tapped creature target player controls. That one's not bad. And then the -8, target player gets an emblem with whenever you activate an ability that isn't a mana ability, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy, and it also partners. Pretty good abilities between the two of them. Maybe a little clunky at 6 mana each, but definitely good once you get into the late game. No attacks from opponent. And so that'll bring it back to our turn. We draw a Steam Vents. We are on 3 mana currently. I guess probably time for the Boilerworks would be my guess. We'll play the Thrumming Bird, get the Boilerworks, bounce the island, and we will pass turn like that. So the one thing I noticed in the first game of this deck is that maybe it was the hand we drew, maybe it was the circumstances. This deck didn't seem to like hard aggro. It didn't seem like there was really enough interaction in this deck. It seems like it's just trying to race to infinite turns, which I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like this deck maybe needs a bit more interaction. There's not even that much in the way of counter spells, like even just a counter spell here or there I think would be a pretty good idea, but we'll see how it goes this game. We do have some more aggro this game. Najeela just went wild on us, so opponent, okay, well there's a Black Sun Zenith, so that'll slow everything down a whole bunch. But opponent used Bloom Tender, they cast Chief of the Edge and Najeela, but all that stuff gets swept away in the Black Sun Zenith. Goreclaw gets much smaller. It actually won't be able to trigger its own ability now. And the Mirror Superion also gets smaller. So Black Sun Zenith out of the chain are going to slow everything right down, which is exactly what we need. We do lose our Thrumming Bird, but there are worse things. There's a Gargos coming into play for the Goreclaw. Yeah, that's a really good one. Goreclaw into the Najeela opponent, and Mirror Superion into the Najeela opponent. It's going to be a hit for 5. Brings it back to our turn. We draw a Mizzix Mastery. Ooh, do we really have, like, nothing that we can do this turn? Yep, that is, guess we're playing the Steam Vents tapped. Next turn we can start getting some Planeswalkers in, and that's good. But yeah, I did have to make some changes to the deck. One, the red finale was like $37 on Magic Online, or tickets rather, and that just seemed a little bit too pricey, so I added Mizzix Mastery in its place, since they do relatively similar things. Ral, Caller of the Storms, I couldn't find anywhere on Magic Online, so I added in the Chandra that copies spells, I forget the name of it. And that actually seemed to work okay in the first game, especially as a 4-mana walker. And then a couple other things. I added in some fetch lands and dual lands just to increase the mana base consistency a bit. And I also added in a Fog Bank. I don't remember what I cut. I think I cut like a Ponder or something like that. Preordained, one of the two. I got rid of something else too. I can't remember what now. But I put a Fog Bank in there just as like to have something against aggro. And I think one of the things that this deck may want to do is just look at things like maybe a Trinket Mage. Trinket Mage helps you ramp. It helps you throw a Chump Blocker in the way. Things like Solemn Simulacrum do the same sort of thing. Like, you can't just run a Planeswalker down there if everyone on board has a bunch of creatures. It doesn't really seem like it's going to work out all that well. And it didn't seem like there were enough board wipes in the deck to really kind of support reliably having a board wipe, blowing everything up, and then casting your Planeswalkers. At least that was the feeling that I was getting. I didn't do a count per se, but it didn't seem like there was enough ways to deter aggro in this deck. And maybe it's a product of maybe there's not that much aggro in Ethan's meta, so maybe they don't need answers to that. But when I said bring strong decks, my Patreons just erred to the side of bring aggro decks. So we've got Goreclaw and we've got Najeela. And I'll be talking about those in a second. Here's Gargos coming our way. Yep. Opponent going to spread the damage around a little bit. We're going to take a big old hit right here. Ooh, opponent's going to Nature's Claim the Mir Superion. Nice. Nice. Gargos gets a fight trigger. Going to fight the Disciple of Grizzlebrand. So some stuff dying right there. That actually works out good for us. Because now we can cast Will Kenrith, and we'll probably use the plus ability. We draw an island. Play the island. Cast Will Kenrith, and this is exactly the situation we want to get into right here. We do get the partner trigger. The game has been slowed down significantly. Last game we were going last and we didn't have any removal, so we couldn't slow anything down. Maybe we should have shuffled right there. I don't really like the way we've been drawing. I'm looking at a lot of lands. But we are going to use this plus ability on the Goreclaw and on the Gargos. And they both become 0-3s. Well, Goreclaw is minus counter, so even less than an 0-3. And I feel like we're in a decent position now. The next thing we'll just need to find some turn spells. Najeela passes with all their mana open. That's suspicious. Cage Sun coming down for the Chainer. Yep, that's a good one for them. Let's talk about our opponents a little bit. First up is Champion Athune piloting Najeela the Blade Blossom. They said I think this is their first time out with the deck, so they weren't feeling super confident with it, but ultimately it's basically play Najeela, attack, pay the 5 mana thing, attack again, get more tokens, and watch people die. That's pretty much how the deck works. It is literally the most aggressive commander ever printed. And what, a good build of it is probably tier 1 competitive, EDH? Yeah, it's very, very good. They said they're not running a full power build, but even still, I've seen some watered down Najeela decks that are still incredibly strong. Just a strong commander all the time, and the only way to really win against it is just make sure Najeela never stays in play, has been my experience. With all that, that's going to bring it back to our turn. We draw a Spell Twine. There's a Harmonize. I'm down for a Harmonize. Let's check out what Spell Twine says. Exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. We need to get something into our graveyard first, which we do not have. But once we do that, we can also copy something from an opponent's graveyard, and there's a couple nice spells floating around there. So that's all good news. I'm going to see if Rowan Kenrith resolves. I'm a little nervous about the fact that Najeela did not use any mana on anything. Makes me think like maybe big counter spell or something like that, like a 5 mana counter. See if this resolves. It does. I'm going to partner just to shuffle. Play land. We're going to use the +2 once again on the Goreclaw and the Gargos. We will plus on the Rowan. And now Will Kenrith is on Ultimate Loyalty next turn. That's all a thing. Didn't realize how fast that happens, especially on an open board. Here comes Najeela back to play. Yep. Here comes a Greed for the Chainer. Opponent's going to draw some cards with the Greed. Drawing 3 cards. Just burning all that life. Living that mono-black life. Opponent gets a Gilded Lotus. Yeah, Chainer getting themselves set up. Draws another card, down to 28. One black floating, draw one more? Nope. Font of Agonies. I haven't seen this one. What's this one do? Whenever you pay life, put that many blood counters on Font of Agonies. Pay 2, remove 4 blood counters. Destroy target creature. Huh, that's kind of cool. That'd be really good with Villas. Here comes Skyshroud Claim. If we drew Turn Spell off the top, things are going to get wild. Opponent plays a Challenger Troll. Each creature you control with power 4 or greater can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. Okay. Turns off double blocking. Opponent is forced to attack with their 2 powerless creatures. We'll send them into our Planeswalkers. No harm, no foul. That brings it back to our turn. We draw a Reliquary Tower. I guess we'll play the Reliquary Tower. Need to look at some extra cards somewhere along the way here. Check all the abilities on this thing again. I think we're going to use the plus mode on Teferi is where we want to be. I don't really want to... Because I basically just... I want to Ultimate Will since we're on Ultimate Loyalty. So play Teferi. Use the plus. Basalt Monolith and Mountain... Don't really need either of those. Put the Basalt Monolith into the hand. I guess that does good things with Teferi. We will Ultimate Will. If we Ultimate, though, does our stuff just get leveled? Does it not get leveled to Najeela? Yeah, I think it's too risky to not. Yeah, let's just Ultimate this thing. We're going to blow up GVR's Goreclaw. That should slow him down at least like a little bit. but Gargos can still kill stuff, and that might be bad. Now we basically just need to find a turn spell and try to get the loop going. I am sure that we have painted the target on our back. With the things that we've done, we've already got a Planeswalker emblem. Opponent said they wanted their Goreclaw to die so they could recast it free of the counters. Well, we helped them out then, is what we did. Yep, Najeela gonna swing into Rowan. Gonna get a warrior token. Also into Rowan. Nothing to block with. Opponent gonna use the Najeela ability. They untap, they gain lifelink and trample on a bunch of abilities. So Rowan goes down. Opponent gonna go after Teferi now. Yep. Gonna get 2 tokens. This will probably take down Teferi. So Teferi going down. Yep. If we recast Rowan, we could blow up all Najeela's stuff. That might be a thing. Here comes Chainer into play. Yep. Now, if we can recast both, I'll have to see if we have enough mana to do that. I don't know if we probably don't. But if we had enough to cast both... Oh, that's a Great Merchant of Asphodel. Opponent gonna gain some life back. We go down to 25, Najeela down to 31, and GVR to 38. Did I finish talking about opponents? I don't know if I finished talking about opponents. Talked about Najeela. Next up, Leastake in the middle, piloting Chainer Dementia Master. A card that is really cool, but I have had a hard time making that thing work. It just paints a really big target on itself. It's very slow to get going, so you basically have to wipe the board. You probably have to wipe the board twice, like we're already in need of another board wipe. But opponent does have some stuff going, especially with the Cage Sun and the Guild Lotus sticking around. They've got the mana. So they bring back Grey Merchant of Asphodel. We are down to 13. Oh my, we could die. We could die. Opponent's up at 73. Grey Merchant of Asphodel's back. Huh. I have never seen this combo. Opponent's up to 91. Opponent's going to play an Ancient Craving. Draw some cards. See the Unwritten for the Goreclaw opponent. And finally, we have GVR piloting Goreclaw, a very good mono-green ramp deck. They're going to fire down See the Unwritten, and they get themselves some creatures. Verdant Sun's Avatar, Team Sabertooth. That Verdant Sun seems really good with all the shenanigans Chainer's got going on. Told opponent if they don't kill me, I can remove the abilities from Chainer. Ooh, savage. Opponent's going to send 14 over to the Najeela. And -1 they go. It's been a pretty quick moving game. Turn 8 already? Oh my. Goreclaw has 15 cards in hand. I didn't see how they managed that. Oh, Praetor's Council. Somewhere along the way they played a Praetor's Council. Completely missed that. They've got a lot of stuff. Brings back to our turn. We draw into a Pyromancer's Goggles. It's nope, still nothing to do with that. We lost our Star Comp. Ooh. Opponent played a Rampage of the Clans. Destroy all artifacts and enchantments. For each permanent destroyed this way, its controller gets a 3/3 Centaur. Chainer gets many Centaurs. We get 1 off of this Star Compass. I don't actually know if we have enough to get our commander back. How much is Will? Will's going to be 8. How much mana do we have? We have exactly 8. Well, I guess we're just at our opponent's mercy then. I guess that's what we're doing. Play Will Kenrith. We can partner. Might as well shuffle. We're going to use the Lose All Abilities bit on Grey Merchant and Chainer. And we're going to stay put with our 1 lonely 3/3. The thing that could happen is that we could just die to these tokens right there. After Grey Merchant of Asphodel has gone off a number of times. Opponent going to send 3 tokens our way. Well, we're going to block 1. Trade those tokens. We go to 1. Oof. Emerald Medallion coming in for our opponent. Yep. Sky Shroud claim. Nature's Lore, all of the ramp. Elvish Mystic. Llanowar Elves. Opponent gaining life, by the way, with Verdant Sun's Avatar on these. There's a Mana Crypt. They're back up to 30. Goreclaw coming into play. Yep. Gaining more life. Mirror Superion. Opponent says Superion is still just as cute the second time. Yes, it is. Free cast when Goreclaw's in play? Why not? Goreclaw is a really cool deck. I really like Goreclaw as a commander. I know Mono Green Selvala is better, and Azusa is probably a little bit better also, but I don't know. Goreclaw is just cool. It does a lot of good things. It gives everyone trample, which is a really big deal, because that's kind of the thing that you might be missing in Mono Green, you know. And there are ways to get trample. There's Najeela and a few other things too, but you know, you got to make sure you have that. And in this case, it's coming out of your command zone, so you have pretty good access to it. And I'm going to see the Unwritten again. Find some more creatures. Oh, it's a Surrak, the Hunt Caller. Opponent's going to get some haste. And a Vigor. Ha! And Green Sun Zenith X8. Is this going to be a Crater Hoof? Opponent going to hassle the Hoof. Got Eternal Ronas. Close enough. No trample, but Goreclaw will provide the trample. There's a Surrak trigger. Everything is large. Going to put it on Goreclaw. Yeah, that makes sense. Give everything trample, plus the additional power. Opponent going to send 1 our way. Yep. It's going to be lethal. Don't think it's going to be lethal against Chainer, though. So we go down. Chainer survives at 45. Most of their mana rocks are gone, but they still got a lot of lands in play. So, yeah, they might be able to still get busy. They don't have a sack outlet anymore. They need a sack outlet to really kind of get busy with the Gray Merchant. Diabolic Tutor, that can find them a sack outlet. Opponent drops down a Cabal Coffers. I wonder if that was the tutor target. Probably was. Opponent brings back the Disciple of Grizzlebrand. So now they've got a sack outlet. Gonna keep getting busy with the Gray Merchant. Gray Merchant gets sacked. If mono green opponent doesn't have some type of like Anthem, Pump Effect, Trader Hoof style thing for this coming turn, they may not have enough damage to actually get past everything. Oh, that's a Living Death. Okay, never mind. Yep, that's the old board wipe mode on Living Death, and that brings back Chainer and Gray Merchant. Vigor will shuffle in, and God Eternal Ronas will do its thing. Tough to say who's in a better spot now. I would say Chainer just because of the combo. But Disciple does get exiled because of the Chainer ability. It says when Chainer leaves the battlefield, exile all nightmares, so that did happen to the Disciple. So they will need to find another sack outlet for the Gray Merchant. Harmonize for the green player. Yep, that's a good one. Opponent does have a Wayward Swordtooth and a Ronas in play. I mean, even just recast your commander, get busy, is not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it looks like they've got something better than that. Opponent said he accidentally exiled his sack outlet. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. There's a Green Sun Zenith X9. Terastodon? Terastodon 9 or 10? How much is Terastodon? It's a Terastodon. Terastodon is 8. Ooh, that's going to hurt. Nykthos, Cabal Coffers, Swamp. Choking the mono black player out of their mana. Yep. Down to 7 lands now. It's going to be hard to combo off with that. Can attack with Ronas and Wayward Swordtooth. Opponent did expose their Wayward Swordtooth right there because it could be double blocked. Yep. And that's exactly what's going to happen. That's a Great Oak Guardian. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Can untap their stuff, pump it up, and save the Wayward Swordtooth. Opponent's plan worked. Great Merchant goes down, and Elephant goes down. Yeah, this thing's pretty ridiculous. Pretty ridiculous. Oh, there's a Decree of Pain. That's a really good one. Opponents get to draw about 5 cards, I think. 4 to 5. Up to 10 cards in hand. Pretty good War of Attrition right here. Like, Mono Black been drawing a lot of cards and wiping the board. Mono Green also drawing a lot of cards and just laying creatures out there that keep getting blown up into board wipes. So, interesting little battle going on. Having that Ronas stick around is pretty huge. Now you just basically just play your commander, and you've always got at least one creature you can keep getting there with. Opponent gonna crack the Blighted Woodlands. Here comes Goreclaw back to play for a lot of mana. I think it was 8. 7 with the cost reduction. There's an Impervious Great Worm coming in. Yep. I hear that can do some damage. And opponent gonna send the Ronas in. It'll get there for 5. Mono black opponent gonna need more answers. And the Indestructible on Great Worm is actually a little bit of a headache because it's so big, like, you don't really want to Toxic Deluge that. And a lot of the other board wipes aren't going to get you there. So, you know, the best bet would be something along the lines of... Oh, that's spicy. Crypt Incursion. Exile all creature cards from target player's graveyard. You gain 3 life for each card exiled this way. I've thought about using that card in the past, just never have. Opponent goes up to 75 life, so they buy themselves some time. There's a Liliana Vess. That's another way to soak up some damage, and they can tutor for something. Probably a board wipe, or either a combo piece or a board wipe, depending on, you know, whether you're going to try to win before this stuff kills you, or if you just need to drag the game out longer. But yeah, something like a Barter in Blood would probably be your best bet against this Impervious Great Worm, but you need to get rid of something else first to do that. And that's actually a card that I've run periodically, or you could even, I guess you could do like multiple Fleshbag Marauders. That would get you there as well. That's a Green Warden of Marasa. No creatures left in the graveyard, but that See the Unwritten's been pretty good for them. Seems like a pretty good place to be. Going for Harmonize, so just looking for straight card draw. Cast Harmonize, draw some cards. Opponent can do some attacking with the Goreclaw, sending Ronas into the Liliana and everything else to their face. Gonna do some pumping with the Ronas. Things getting large. Ooh, pumping up the commander. It's gonna be a lot of commander damage. They might have commander lethal if they go activate the Nykthos. Opponent said, "Why didn't I think of this before?" The Goreclaw opponent said. Nice. Yep, gets themselves some extra green mana with the Nykthos. Getting close on this Goreclaw. It's up to 17 power. Need just a teeny bit short. Commander lethal. 19 is going to be too short. Cuts opponent's life total in half. Brings them from 75 down to 39. Liliana goes down. And at 19 commander damage. There's a Cabal Stronghold for the mono black opponent. They're going to need another board wipe. And a nasty one at that too because of the Impervious Great Worm. Is this going to be a Torment of Hellfire? I don't know that Torment wins it. Oh, Black Sun Zenith X13. That's actually a really good one. That solves the issue. That is how you deal with this Great Worm. It's still alive, but it's only a 3/3, so much less scary than it was. Green Warden of Marasa gets another trigger. I'd probably exile it. Harmonize or See the Unwritten, probably still the 2 best. Oh, gonna go back for Ronas. Okay, yeah, I can understand that. The Goreclaw Trample plan seem to be doing good things for them. Opponent also has a ton of mana. They have 19 basics and 21 total lands, plus a mana crypt and a cost reducer? Yeah, that's what mono green does. It's only turn 13. Ooh, Kavu Lair. When a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, its controller draws a card. It's cool. I'm gonna have to get one of those. I'm working on the Gargos Hydra deck right now. I've switched my Goreclaw deck over to that in paper, and that seems like a nice one. Goreclaw back to play. Opponent draws a card. Aronas, pumping the Great Worm. I think what opponent's probably doing right here, they have 6 cards in hand. I assume they have more creatures. They're probably trying to not overcommit into more board wipes. Because, oh, that's what they're doing. Okay, yeah, I see what's up. So they're going to cast the Rishkar's Expertise, and this has 9 power currently. And they have 14 cards in hand with no max hand size because of the Praetor's Council. Here comes God Eternal Ronas back to play. That was the free cast. Pervious Great Worm back up to 18 power. Opponent has 14 cards in hand. So it's turn 13, which is like, you know, moderately late, not crazy late. And opponent has played 2/3 of the cards in their deck. They have 33 cards remaining in their library. Or I guess they haven't played them, but they've at least looked at them, which is insane. I mean, that's what mono green does. That is just insanity to me. I do think green is probably the best mono color now because of that. I would say that black is probably right behind it, because of its ability to just like tutor for a combo, tutor for the thing you need, tutor for the board wipe, whatever. And now that there's 2 finishers with like Exsanguinate and Torment, that's pretty crazy. But green's ability to just generate resources is unbelievable. So Chainer back to play. Ravenous Chupacabra. Some things are going to get blown up. Going to blow up the Goreclaw. Opponent going to stay off that commander lethal for a little while. However, Great Worm and Ronas is still a problem for him. Opponent's down to 15 life. Oop, that's Kakusho. Okay. Kakusho does things. Opponent gets to draw with the Kavu Lair. I guess that's the downside to Kavu Lair. Opponents get to draw as well. But if your deck's running like 30 creatures that all have 4 power or greater, most opponents' decks probably won't have that. Opponent going to get busy with the Chainer again. More great Grey Merchant of Asphodel action. It brings themselves back up to 20. Yep. And they pass the turn like that. Soul Ring. Goreclaw back to play. Opponent draws a card. Ooh, Archetype of Endurance. That is hexproof on all of their stuff. Spot removal is basically useless. There's a Vigor. Okay. It's back. There's some boots. You can't haste the Goreclaw and pump it up, but Vigor's still a thing. Opponent sending all available attackers. Goreclaw triggers. A number of things here have Death Touch with Trample. Particularly this God Eternal Ronas. If you pump this up, opponent's not going to be able to block that particularly well, and that's probably game, actually. Yeah, I think opponent's going to have lethal right here. Nope, that's a Berserk. What did it go on? It's on the God Eternal Ronas. I think this is lethal now. Yes, it is. Opponent goes down to the massive mono-green army. Goreclaw, very, very strong. Green Good Stuff decks, also very, very strong. All right, so what did we see from our deck? We ended up getting that emblem down, and I'm not entirely sure that was right play, but I think it was because even if we didn't, I think Najeela, something was going to overrun our commanders within the next turn cycle. So I think it was now or never on the emblem right there. And then it was just kind of like, hope we top deck an extra turn spell, and we didn't. And because we didn't, we ended up losing. So I noticed this deck is very, very weak to fast aggro. We faced it now in 2 games. I don't like the fact that there's not a lot of interaction or removal in this deck. Let's take a look. So this Fog Bank is something I added in. I put that in over the Shattering Spree. We've got a Cyclonic Rift. Okay, so I've separated this into 2 piles. This pile right here is interaction that is spell-based, and this pile is interaction that is planeswalker-based. There are a couple board wipes. So we have Blasphemous Act, Starstorm, Jaya's Immolating Inferno, which is, it's a little hit and miss. You need a planeswalker in play to use it. Electro Dominance is okay, and Fireball. Then you have Chain Reaction and Evacuation. Karn's Temple Sundering, you get to bounce something, take an extra turn, and Cyclonic Rift, Mass Bounce. So the thing I don't like is that, I mean, these X spells, they're expensive. Even though there's a lot of ramp in the deck, I think there's like 12 or 13 pieces of ramp. There's a pretty decent amount. We didn't hit the ramp very well, and with something like Gargos in play, we wouldn't have had enough mana to burn that Gargos out when we needed to in the game. So I just don't think there's enough interaction in this deck, you know, and especially like cheaply costed interaction. I get that some of these are also in there to be the big finisher when you start taking extra turns, generating a lot of mana, things like that. But yeah, I just feel like this deck needs a lot more interaction in it. And like in both games, it's just this deck is very, very weak to fast aggro. And maybe it's the case that there's no fast aggro in Ethan's meta, and that would make sense why he's not geared up for it. But there's also not like a lot of counter spells either. So like, I really feel like this deck just is trying to race everything out, and I don't like the way that feels, because to me, taking extra turns makes this a pretty strong deck. I personally wouldn't want to play this deck against more casual decks, because taking turns is fun for one player and not fun for 3 other players, so I'm not a big advocate of turns anyway. So, you know, where I think this deck should be played is against other stronger decks that don't really care if you're having fun or not. And as we saw against our opponents here, when our opponents bring good decks, I don't feel like this deck is holding up super well against other really good decks. I think it's because of the lack of interaction. But I don't think that that's a hard thing to solve. So if I wanted to make this deck better, a few things that I would probably add. So if I were going to make changes to this deck, this is probably what I would do. It depends on how fast of a meta you're actually playing this in. But Worn Power Stone is probably the first thing that I would add, and I would cut one of these 2-mana rocks. And I'd probably cut something like this Izzet Keyrune. Keyrune's fine, but the additional mana on Worn Power Stone is really good. Next, I would add something like a Hedron Archive or a Thran Dynamo. Either of those, depending if you want the more card draw, if you want the extra mana. But those help you get up to large amounts of mana very quickly, so I like those a lot. Probably go with that over Darksteel Ingot. Again, especially like 3 mana for 1 on your Mana Rock. Doesn't do that much for me. Jace Unraveler of Secrets is pretty meh, in my opinion. I think it'd also get rid of Contentious Plan. Like, yeah, I get that there's Proliferate on there, but I don't know. You're already taking a bunch of extra turns. There's other ways. You've got Thrumming Bird. You've got Clock Spinning. There's a few things in there already. And like I said, I think this deck really, really just needs removal. So we've got the big 2. We've got Blasphemous Act. We've got Chain Reaction. Honestly, one thing that's probably worth adding is a Mazavith. And if you want Mazavith, that probably also means Thaumatic Compass. That'll both ensure your land drops and give you more protection later on. Mana Geode, feel like we can live without that. And then we're gonna get into some more spot removal-y kind of things. You want what this deck needs? This deck needs like Ether Spouts and Etherize. So let's get an Ether Spouts in here. Let's get an Etherize. Honestly, I'd probably cut Savor the Moment. Like, we cast it in game 1, and it wasn't. We cast 2 of them in game 1, and even that, it just wasn't that great. Like, didn't do what we really needed it to do. So, Savor the Moment out. Now we've got 2 additional board wipes that, you know, they don't kill everything, but they can at least stop one set of things coming in our way, which is really good. We've got a little bit more protection with Thaumatic Compass, Mazavith. The other things that I would like to see in this deck, and I don't know what I would cut to get to them. I'd have to study this deck a bit more. But things like Pongify, Reality Shift, and Rapid Hybridization seems like they should definitely be here, but also like a couple of counter spells. I'm not saying you need to go wild, but like Counterspell Negate is probably a really good starting place, or Counterspell Arcane Denial. Something like that. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to talk about too is a card like Spellseeker that can search up instants for 2 converted mana costs. That card is ridiculous. And for this deck, will give us another nice little blocker in addition to helping us find some interaction like Cyclonic Rift, like a counterspell, something like that. So what I really think I want to see from this deck, I think I want to see a couple small creatures, Trinket Mage, Spellseeker, maybe a Solemn Simulacrum, just to kind of build up a little meat wall in front of the Planeswalkers, and then also have a little bit more interaction to fire off to stop incoming creatures so that you can keep your Planeswalkers alive and then eventually get to the plan of trying to take extra turns. So anyway, those are the changes that I would make to the deck. I'm definitely not an expert in blue-red turns, so if you guys have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Because yeah, this playstyle is a little bit out of my wheelhouse, so if some of you are really experienced with it, let me know what things you think this deck is missing. And then yeah, Ethan can check the comments in this video as well, and hopefully make a couple upgrades to the deck, and really get this thing running on all cylinders. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.